Hi again then guys, and welcome to episode 2 of GT Masters, the review series for the GT class racing cars of Gran Turismo 6, both real and also the fictional ones, such as the car in this episode. This is the Nissan Fairlady Z or 350Z IMSA style GT race car. Now, there are actually two versions of this car on the game, and to be completely honest, I haven't actually tested them both. They both look exactly the same, apart from the wheels. They both have exactly the same price, but for some reason, this version is much higher in terms of PP. Now, I feel that there is probably a big difference between the specs of the two cars, but as I said, I haven't bought the lower version. So, if you fancy trying that car, I'd recommend giving it a chance. I may end up buying it and perhaps doing a review of that car as well, but for the moment, this is the higher PP version. So, what does this car have to offer? Because it's been on Gran Turismo for a little while now. I believe, if I remember correctly, it was introduced on GT4. You could win the car actually very early on in the game. You could win it for, I believe it was the Amalfi Rally event, or some event like that, where you could win this car and then sell it for around 250,000 credits. So it was a fantastic money maker at the start of the game. But to be honest, it's a car which I never really used that much. I'm not a huge fan of the Fairlady Z anyway, and it's not real. I don't really care. You know, it's a Fairlady. How good is it really going to be? But as it turns out, this is actually a superb GT car. Not just a good one, a fantastic one. Now, what does it have to offer? Because of course it's not a real racing car, so they can take some liberties with what it's capable of, and I feel like they kind of have, to some degree, because of course we don't really know what this car would actually be like because it doesn't exist. But it is built to pay homage to the IMSA Racing 300ZX of a fair few years ago, and the IMSA series features cars which have very, very impressive performance, to say the least. They're extremely powerful, very fast machines, and as such this car does actually go beyond the spec of many GT3 spec or the like vehicles. It's designed to be a higher class, kind of like comparing a Can-Am car to a Le Mans prototype. They're not the same, they have completely different approaches to being as fast as they are, but they can still be pretty competitive from those two different points of view. It's kind of similar with this car. It's not a GT class vehicle in the conventional sense of a GT1, GT3, GT2, but it can definitely compete on that level, or even beyond that level. In fact, this is one of the relatively few GT cars which I can confidently say can take on prototypes. That is how good this car is. It is amazing. But what about the sheer spec? Well, it's powered by a 3.5 litre engine that, fully tuned, puts out 933 horsepower and a pretty impressive 780 pound-feet of torque. It weighs 1120 kilos, which is reasonably good. It's certainly not heavy, and it puts out a whopping 833 horsepower per tonne, which is in the higher region of the GT class cars. As far as PP, it's very high, 680 PP. That's higher than the Nomad Diablo GT1 that we finished the Tour of Japan series with. That's actually higher than most of the other GT cars that will be in this series. It's not the highest, but it is one of the highest. The price is only 1,000,000 credits, which, although, yeah, 1,000,000 credits is 1,000,000 credits for a GT car, that does mean it's one of the slightly cheaper models. So why is it cheaper? And is it worth buying? Well, to address the 1,000,000 credits and is it worth it, I would say that the reason why it costs 1,000,000 credits is probably because it's not a real car, and Polyphony knows that people aren't going to want to spend ridiculous amounts of money on a GT car that isn't real, which could potentially turn out to be a waste of money. So the car is slightly cheaper to encourage more people to actually give it a chance. I think that's an excellent idea. This car is most definitely worth 1 million credits. The value is superb. As I said towards the start of the video, I would say this is actually one of the best GT cars in the game. And if you haven't tried it, it's incredible. I would say it's actually better than the GTR LM concept car, or the concept race car. It's a superb racing car. This car can beat GTRs all day long, even racing GTRs. It is an amazing racing machine. Now, for straight line performance, many GT cars don't come anywhere near the level of a prototype, and unfortunately that's kind of the case with this model. The acceleration is fantastic, it's incredibly quick, but the top speed does kind of suffer. That's almost forgivable though, because it does on many other GT cars as well, so it's still highly competitive against them. You're looking at around 230 to 240 under its own power. So definitely not slow, and that's enough to take on any Super GT car on most tracks and most other GT cars in general. The handling, though, is what I would say is actually the best point about this car. In this video that you're watching, I'm running no camber whatsoever, very minimal anti-roll, and it handles unbelievably well. Now, as I said, that's due to them taking some liberties with what the car's capable of because of it not being real. But overall, if you haven't tried this car out yet on GT6 and you're looking for a strong GT race car, definitely give this car a chance. So that's it for this episode. I'll see you guys next time, and as always, thanks for watching.